Welcome. I am looking forward to the show today. We have an amazing guest, and I'm getting ready to introduce him in just a minute. But before we do, we want to talk about our sponsors, ZionMissionaryChurch.net, where you can listen and watch messages, share prayer requests, or even plan a visit. Also, NeuroPowerSource.com. These are resources for your mind, your body, and your spirit. There's all kinds of discount codes on there for equipment, biohacking gear, nootropics, all kinds of stuff. Soon to have articles and other great information to encourage you along your journey. So let's get on with it today. I want to introduce you to Dan Jon. Dan Jon has spent his life with one foot in the world of lifting and throwing and the other foot in academia. He's an All-American discus thrower. Dan has also competed at the highest levels of Olympic lifting, Highland Games, and the weight pentathlon, an event which he holds the American record. Dan spends his work life blending weekly workshops and lectures with full-time writing, and he's also an online religious studies instructor for Columbia College of Missouri. As a Fulbright scholar, he toured the Middle East, exploring the foundations of religious education programs. Dan is also senior lecturer for St. Mary's University in Twickenham, London. His books on weightlifting include Intervention, Never Let Go, Mass Made Simple, and Easy Strength, written with Pavel Tsatsouline, as well as From Dad to Grad. He and Josh Hillis also co-authored Fat Loss Happens on Mondays. And in 2015, Dan wrote Can You Go? And on his approach on assessments and basic training. In addition, Before We Go, another compilation akin to Never Let Go, became an Amazon bestseller. In early 2017, Dan's book, Now What? His approach to performance and dealing with life became a bestseller on Amazon. The Hardstyle Kettlebell Challenge also became available in September 2017 as well. But I want to say this. With all of that in mind, I have personally watched some of his presentations. I have his books, and I can tell you that Dan invests in the lives of others. He has been there, done that, and applying what he's going to teach you today will deliver lasting results. So with that being said, Dan, welcome to the show.
Well, I think we just ran out of time. That was amazing. Thank you. Yeah. Wish my mom and dad were here.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great day. Good to hear from you again.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, I just appreciate the presentations that I've seen from you, the way that you're able to not only connect, but to deliver information that can be applied right now. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, my goal always is I feel that if I can't get you to at least do something from the workshop on Monday, and it can be anything as simple as putting the floss sticks on the driver's side, that little hole there so that you floss your teeth during the commute. If it's adding a little drill or a hinge movement that teaches or something on Monday, you go to the workshop Saturday, on Monday, there's instant application, and in some cases, people have gotten back to me and said, yeah, we kind of went home, we sat down, we threw out everything, and we're doing it like this. And I was like, oh, okay. We didn't have to go that far, but I get it. We all can do that. Yeah.
I love that. So I've got some questions that I just think would really be something that the listeners would be interested in. And the first one is this. It's a two-parter. How did you begin on your strength and training journey? Because it's definitely been a journey with all that we read there. Uh-huh. And knowing what you know now, what would you do differently?
Well, it's fun. I don't know where you got my bio, but it's missing a book called 40 Years with the Whistle. It's that story. I start off in 1965. My Aunt Marie died, and she left us $500, me and my brothers. I'm the youngest of six. And so they went, because I didn't get any of the money, of course. They went to Sears and bought the Ted Williams barbell set, the 110-pound set, 50 kilos for non-pound people. And there was a great little thing in there written by Ted Williams. Basically, it said, showed a bunch of different ways to pick the weight up off the ground and a bunch of different ways to put the weight up overhead, and basically 2 sets of 5. And it took me 35, 40 years to figure out that's the best advice I'd ever had in my life. But, and the thing about weightlifting that I always loved was it's progressive resistance exercise. And for me, that underline of the word progressive. I don't know of a lot of things in life, and by the way, there are a lot of things in life, but that do this. But weightlifting was so obvious. If you show up 3 days a week and you stay at it, very soon you add more plates to the bar, and you add more repetitions, and you progressively get stronger. And like what Rob Wolf says, sometimes you get that hormonal cascade where maybe you lose some fat, maybe you gain some muscle, and you get a little more mobile. And it's progressive, and it just keeps. And that's when I started this journey. In 1965 is when I first started to lift weights. Since 1970, I don't think I've missed. I maybe missed a few weeks with things, but life, travel or something like that. But 2, 3, 5, 7 days a week since then, I've lifted weights and loved it. I just really enjoy it. You ask a question. I'm not ripping on you. I don't like that question. Mm-hmm. I always worry it becomes a Twilight Zone episode, that if I went back in time, I told little Danny, do this or do that, I could, both my daughters suddenly disappear and I don't have a dog anymore. But, oh yeah. How many, there's a lot of things. The first thing I would, if I could, John, the number one thing was to be real careful about who you listen to. And let's just stop there, because that's it. My mentors, Dick Nottmeyer, Ralph Maughan, so many others, Bob Luhati, Dave Turner, these are all quality people who told me some truths about getting better. And it sums up in one sentence. You need a one sentence summary: little and often over the long haul. If you decide to do things like drugs, amphetamines, anabolics, shooting yourself up, fine. But and you are going to improve faster. But I like to think I'm going to be around longer than some of them. You just got to be very careful about who you listen to. If somebody tells you this is better, they have to. That's the beautiful thing about being a track and field athlete, is if someone does throw farther doing something, they're right. And that would be the number one thing. Be very careful about looking for the shiny new objects. Stick with what works. And that would be the number one thing. And of course, I wouldn't listen to them, but, to me, but, that would be my advice. Mistakes I've made, I got to be careful about that too. I did try very seriously Nautilus for 2 years, very seriously. Like I wrote in my journal, I can remember almost clearly, my pecs and biceps look bigger, but my discus isn't going anywhere. I was an early adopter of CrossFit, tried it for a while, and actually trained people doing it, but I regret that decision. Once you get outside the Olympic lifts and the power lifts, clean and press, snatch, clean and jerk, squat, bench, deadlift, you really start to get into you get into minutia after those. You just don't. That's the key. Get strong in those 5 or 6 lifts, depending on how you want to count them, and go do some farmer walks, and you'll be just fine.
I love that. And, I had a great mentor too. John Brookfield was a tremendous mentor
great guy
to me. But one of the things that we never talked about, and one of the things, he was just natural at, was mobility. And so when I first started out, I was going all in all the time, crazy weights, crazy feats of endurance, but I neglected my mobility because it didn't really affect me that much then. And now I'm paying the price for that. So if I could go back, that's what I would say is do some mobility stuff, my man. It was the phone call that made me late for our conversation. I told the guy exactly what you just said. Between a set, if you're doing 3 sets of 8, between every set, pop on the ground,
Do your original straight movements from Tim Anderson. Do your rocking, do your rolling, do whatever it is between. I don't believe in rest periods anymore. Well, obviously I do, but the rest period is mobility work.
I love that.
And it has been an absolute eye opener. When people first train with us, especially at the intentional community sessions, they always go, well, I don't feel like I did very much. Yeah, okay. But I'm ravenously hungry and let's go eat. And they get very angry. And it's like, okay. It's because you just worked out for an hour without ever having a rest period. You did. Yes, you did rest, but you were doing mobility work or, whatever we were doing other things the whole time.
I love that concept of active recovery in between sets. I just think it would totally revolutionize most guys who go to the gym. This is one of the reasons I like to train in my basement is, I'm not waiting while five guys go to get a drink or want to talk for, 15 minutes in between sets, and they're gearing up for that next lift. I love this whole idea of going in, get the work done, get out.
John, Men's Health called my garage America's top gym. And the reason the writers and the editor like my concept so much is because I see my home gym, and maybe you do too, as I don't know if you ever heard of the concept of a teaching hospital, where it's a hospital where we're also teaching doctors and nurses for their career. So it's a hospital that's also a university. Well, that's how I see my gym. It's a teaching gymnasium. So if you come to my gym, and even you, John, and you've got some water under your bridge. I mean, you've been there, done that. I would still ask you, what do you need to work on? And if you said mobility, we might spend the next 45 minutes just doing mobility. And you might find at the end of that workout, you're more trashed than after heavy deadlifts. Maybe not, but you follow my point? I agree with you 100%. The thing I like about having my own facility here is that I can do those things. And I don't want to, the one other thing that people miss is that my garage is open to the elements. So today when we trained, we've had a massive snowstorm, probably 16 inches in some areas. My neighborhood's probably about that. Well, you open those double garage doors, it's winter. It's cold. There's snow. There's water on the ground. And we have to adapt to that. In the summer in Utah, it's a desert. It's 120. And you have to adapt to that. And that even makes my mind work even kind of brighter. If brighter, more synapses click. Okay, the idea of today's workout, we're going to do all the groundwork. Well, the ground is frozen and wet. Okay. Now what? That's good. Yeah. Now what? There's a title of one of my books. But
I love it. And it's the whole thing about teaching the body to adapt
to
those environments. And really that's what we want all athletes, and I think everybody's an athlete. So a lot of people say, I'm talking about, I think everybody everywhere is an athlete in some way, shape, or form. It's teaching that body to adapt to different environments, and that's really what training is all about is, can you adapt? How well can you cope with what's going on? And that's why I like the stuff that you're talking about. That carries over to real life. And, I've always said sports, everything else, it's life training. We're training you to deal with life. How do you react to adversity? How do you react to different conditions like a job loss or whatever it may be? Yeah. Training, you are teaching people in all areas.
Sick dog, yeah.
I love that.
Your dog throws up, that changes your workout. I don't care who you are. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I was late in my discus career. I was at a track meet, and these guys from one of our elite groups were there, and all they did was complain about where we were throwing. And I was like, here's the difference. At the time, I was training on asphalt, no discus ring, by the way, no field. I was throwing into a brick wall with a medicine ball with a handle on it. And these guys were complaining about this beautiful facility, the winds coming right off the ocean, and they were complaining about everything. I thought to myself, this is why you guys will never be great. Is because, and you see this at weightlifting meets a lot too, and I bet you, if you go back through your memories, John, you'll remember this. Someone will complain about the equipment at a meet. I believe you should train with the worst equipment you can find. everything should be duct taped together. Everything, I mean, platform, yeah, the platform's got snow on it. Good luck snatching today. But the idea is when you compete, it's always a step up, and you always feel like you have more in the tank. I call it deprivation training. When you sit down with guys who are Marines, one of the things the Marines will tell you is that one of the reasons they think they're so good is that they always have less than everybody else. So they have to kind of out hustle, outwit, outthink the opponent.
I love that innovation. You know, one of the things that when I first started into strongman and doing performances, everybody was talking about thick-handled dumbbells, and I couldn't afford it. And so I got the idea from Jon. You know, I got these dumbbells, and I took rolls and rolls and rolls of duct tape to make these things thicker. And then every week I would add a little bit to the duct tape. And pretty soon, you know, my grip was crazy. But people would look at, you know, my stuff, and they're like, man, this is rusted out. You know, there's all kinds of crazy stuff everywhere. It's cold. It's damp. There's rust on the bars. There's rust on the plates. But I love it. I mean, again, there's just it's a comfort zone for me. So I love that. Well,
exactly.
Speaking of equipment, you know, if you were, you know, giving advice to average Joe out there, okay, we're not talking about the greatest, but just, hey, if there's two pieces of equipment that you need to get started, you know, what would you advise them to do? Somebody who says, I want to start, you know, tomorrow doing and changing my life for the better physically. What are two pieces of equipment they should maybe think about?
Well, I'm going to go in two directions, okay? Two directions. It depends on what's going on in this person's. So, for example, if they have like a porch, a patio, a garage area with enough room, I would say buy the traditional 140K or 310-pound barbell set.
Okay.
And I would not get squat racks. I would not, and I wouldn't get a bench press either. I'd put that way down the line, because if you just have the barbell, and if you want to put weights overhead, like I had to learn, you had to clean it and then put it overhead. If you want to squat it, you had to clean it, then front squat it. People say, why didn't you back squat? Well, if you have to clean it from the floor, it's a lot easier just to front squat it, or snatch it and overhead squat it. And so this is when you first get this 310-pound barbell set. Here's goal number one. I want you to deadlift the bar. Goal number two, let's think. Oh, okay. I want you to clean it. And then goal number three, clean and jerk it. Goal number four, clean and press it. Goal number five, snatch it. Then we'll talk about what else equipment. If you can snatch your 310 set, you're probably pretty strong. By the way, most people never get there. So now, if you're more of the normal side of things, if you're male, I'd buy the 20-kilo kettlebell and probably something like a TRX or whatever brand you have. If you're female, I'd get the 10 and a TRX. With the 20-kilo bell and a TRX, you can do just about anything. And the nice thing is, when you put it all away, I have a little corner here where I've got a backpack. It takes up half the space of that backpack. So it depends on so if you're an apartment dweller, go that way. Okay. Is that okay?
That's fantastic, because again, everybody has different situations, and you know, I love giving different options to different people about that.
Yeah. So, and then if you want to keep pushing this on, I've actually written articles or maybe forum posts in the past. I should really write an article about. See, I'm a big believer in building your home gym over time. I've got a number of friends, wealthy friends, who have these home gyms, never touched. The only person who touches them is the cleaning lady who comes in once a week. She dusts them. But if all you have is a 20-kilo kettlebell, and then you say, oh, okay, and you go to Ross Dress for Less, and they've got a $5 ab wheel, you buy the ab wheel, and you slowly build up your gym. My home gym right now, let's say I thought I had 26 kettlebells, but it seems I have more, which makes me laugh. I have 4 TRXs, 4 TRX rips, squat rack, 2 Olympic bars, lots and lots of bounce plates, 2 hip thrust racks, 2 different kinds of farmer bars, all the Highland Games and Olympic throwing event stuff that you can have. Oh, just so much. All kinds of just odds and ends, trap bars and stuff like that. But concept two rower. I'm just walking around the gym mentally. All kinds of bands and straps and all kinds. But I think the total investment I've made on it, if I said it's $100, maybe 200, most of the stuff is either donated or people have given it to me or found. And so I built up a home gym that originally was just a single 28 kilo kettlebell to what I have now. And if I moved to another state, like almost happened, my wife didn't get the job, so I'm not going to another state. And I've been thinking the same question, John. How will I rebuild my gym if we had to go to the East Coast? And my thought was, it's funny you ask, 28 kilo bell and a TRX, and I was probably going to take the smaller hip thrust machine. And that'd be it. That's how I'd start again.
That is very cool, and I just relate to that so much. You know, we can't really walk in our basement now because of all the plates and kettlebells and logs.
Yeah.
But when I started and I wanted to train by myself, you know, I was still going to the gym sometimes, but I really wanted to pursue strength. All I had was that 310-pound set like you're talking about, and I couldn't afford a kettlebell, so I went to the welder and had him make me a homemade plate-loaded kettlebell. So you talk about banging yourself and doing some crazy stuff. And then when I finally could afford a kettlebell, you know, I could only get one. So I got that 70-pounder. So, and this is back in the early days of people getting into kettlebells, but I just really believed in a lot of the stuff that I had read from Pavel and other authors, how it was a game changer. So I had to learn to snatch that 70. There was no progression. There was no anything. But I think the big key is that people want to wait until they get that magical piece of equipment that somehow is going to change them forever. And
Well, but John, you can run into this. I'm considered prolific as a writer, right? And people say, well, how do you do it? And I just give them the advice. It's old. Perfect is the enemy of good. And there are times I just press the button and I send it in. And then someone emails me back and said, we had to clean up this or that, you know, or there might be that's rare. I mean, the computers now, they do all the work for you. But, you know, you gotta press the button and send it in, man. And sometimes it's not going to be perfect. But while my opponent is seeking for perfection, we're knocking out a bunch of quality repetitions with pretty good. And I got to tell you, pretty good's pretty good.
Excellent. I love that advice. Let me ask you this, because it doesn't have to be physical. This could be emotional, relational, spiritual. It could be anything. I am curious, with all the things that you have done, what is one of your personal favorite or greatest victories or accomplishments that you've had in life?
Yeah, it's funny you say that, John. That was a question they asked us at the Olympic Training Center. So I've been there 3 times. Once as an Olympic lifter and twice as a discus thrower. And you're supposed to put in the key moments of your life. You know, your high points. Mine's oddly. I mean, the reason this one's so important to me is because this became the foundational. This is the moment my life turned. Okay, it changed. All right, 1967. I was in a softball league with 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. Now, there's 2 things. First, I have an August 28th birthday, so I was always the youngest kid in the class because September 1st was a cutoff. And if you're the youngest of 6, mom ain't holding you back. She's done. Bye-bye. Go, you know. So even though I was a 3rd grader, basically I was mostly a 2nd grader, okay? And my batting average was 0.00 for the season, which isn't real good in slow pitch softball. And so, of course, it comes to the championship game, of course. And the night before, I go to the high school by myself, and I try to learn how to hit by myself. And I throw the ball up and swing with my eyes closed. A guy by the name of Dale Kirsten saw me, walked over, and told me to swing level and keep my eyes on the ball. He threw me a couple of easy lobs. I swung level, and I kept my eyes open, and I made contact. And I just kept. He probably threw me the ball 10 times. Eyes open, swing level. Eyes open, swing level. The next day, as all these stories always go, last inning, we're down by, I think it was 1 run, but it doesn't matter. There were 2 outs and a guy on third. And the captain, was a 5th grader, said, "Who's up?" And I said, "Me." And he looked at me and he goes, "Well, then we're going to lose." Well, that hurt my feelings, but I got up to the plate, kept my eyes on the ball, swung level, got a hit, got to first base. We win the game. My brothers at the time at the high school, Gary was becoming an All-American in track. My other brothers were all very successful athletes, and I hated sports. And that one hit, and it's funny because the moment I came home and told the story, my brother Phil, who just died, kind of, I can't threw shade on the story, but I don't care because, and you can ask my intern, my good friend Mike Brown. I've only asked for one thing at my funeral, and that's the trophy that says S.V.67. And that's the only thing I want for sure at my funeral. Have all the pictures and all the whatever you want, but that's what I want at my funeral. That little trophy. I mean, it's not even the size of it's small. It's smaller than a cell phone. And that trophy means the world to me because it was, there's so many lessons. I look back now, I'm 63, and I look back on that. And I look back, whatever I am, how old I am. And there was, first off, I went on my own to get better. I went up and I tried on my own. I practiced by myself. The other thing is, at the 20th high school reunion, my sister Corrine went up to Dale Kirsten and said, "My brother Danny speaks really highly of you." And he goes, "The discus thrower?" And she goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Why?" He goes, and retold the story. And here's the funny thing, John. He doesn't remember the story. All he was doing was walking home from practice, saw a kid who needed help for 5 minutes. He changed my life. So you just never know, man. You just never know when you can change someone's life forever.
Not only is that an amazing story, but I think that kind of is a model of how you have repaid that debt over and over in other people's lives. I just watch you walk through a room. A lot of people are me-focused, and one of the things that I thought was just so interesting, especially at one of the conferences that we were at together, was how you approach the room. You walk in, and it's like you look, how can I help you instead of what can I get or receive from you? And so I really appreciate that so much.
Well, I really appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, I'm harvesting my inner Dale Kirsten. Yes. Yeah. So that would be, and you hear that story, and a lot of, I've had amazing. I mean, really. I mean, I won the nationals on my last throw. That's what every thrower wants to do, and yeah, that's important to me. That was big, yeah. And I pulled off a huge Highland game win one time. I had to turn an unturnable caber, and I turned it. I got all those stories, bunch of tackles in a football game. I played this high school game one time, and it's like they'd break the huddle, and it was like I just knew where they were going. I just knew the play. But none of that happens. My wife and my kids disappear. I don't go to Utah State on an athletic scholarship. I don't go to the Middle East. I don't do this. It all turns on that one swing. And it really does.
And I love that because I think so many people don't realize that many times the greatest accomplishment is emotional or is mental or is that relational thing.
Yeah.
We're chasing the one thing, and yet the thing that makes the difference sometimes, goes overlooked. So I love that story. That was fantastic.
Yeah, and I appreciate you asking. That's a very good question. Yeah, thank you.
What is your favorite fuel? What does the Dan John perfect meal look like? If you get your perfect meal, what does that look like?
Protein, veggies, and water. That's what I say at every workshop. Perfect meal, Thanksgiving. We have practice Thanksgiving at our house probably 4 or 5 times a year. Tiff and I cook a turkey. We make mashed potatoes, and then all the guests are asked to bring a vegetable side. But to me, my perfect meal is Thanksgiving. So that's why we practice it so often. The cool thing about it's a great tradition. I strongly recommend you think it through. A turkey, I mean, right now, a whole turkey costs here in Utah probably $22. So it's a very inexpensive meal. But the nice thing about practice Thanksgiving is we get up to 40 people in our family room downstairs, and everybody. Oh, by the way, it's practice. So if the mashed potatoes aren't good, everyone says, "Oh, it's fine. It's practice." We didn't have any like cranberry sauce one time, and it was the joke became, "That's practice. It's practice. It's okay. We're practicing." But the thing is, if you forget to invite somebody or somebody can't make it, it's no big deal because it's just practice. So practice Thanksgiving is my favorite meal.
I love that. That's a good philosophy on life. It's just
Oh
practice.
yeah.
I love that. Let me ask you this: being at where you're at, having been there, done that, what are you really passionate about right now? Like, what is something that you're super passionate about?
Oh, right now?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I've got this new website. I got a new website. We were calling it Dan John Workouts, but we changed it to Dan John University because I'm coming up with it's one of the videos. Most of it's done. The PowerPoints are all done, but one of the things is it's going to be a 10-part kind of overview of strength coaching. Obviously based on the work I do, but with like all kinds of like I reviewed a little bit with Pat Flynn today, and lecture number 9 is about my mentors, and then the books. It's called resources, because I really think mentors are really like if you were to talk to anybody, John, about what and you don't mention Brookfield. If they say, what books do you recommend? You always should start off with Jon Brookfield because his mentoring of you probably guided you away from a lot of stupidity. Okay, it makes sense. And then there's books that I recommend. So every day I work on this thing. Every day I sit down and I organize these new PowerPoint presentations and talk to the guy that we're doing the videos with. I get kind of fired up because it's like, yeah, this is what, and then we're gonna have little tests, but the tests are gonna be, very open-ended questions about our field because, I hate the answer. It depends. That's always, it depends is so true, but so many of the questions I get are should we do this? And of course, the answer to all should questions is it depends. A great place to look up to learn more about it depends and should is the books Jurassic Park and Lost World. Crichton does a really good job with the question, should we? And that's why I recommend those to people who want to be strength coaches. And I mean that. That's a true story. Because the should we, could we question shows up. We could, make, Raptors. Well, should we? Well, no. Okay. So that's what kind of fires me up right now. One problem, though, with everything I just said, the word passion comes from the root to suffer. And the problem with this particular thing I just said is that there's no suffering in this particular project. So let me give you a better answer about what I'm passionate about. That's what I'm excited about. Enthusiasm, God within. That's what I'm enthusiastic about. What I'm passionate about is about a year and a month ago, I had a total hip replacement. I've lost 36 pounds in that year because, no more pain, no more inflammation. And right now I am passionate about getting myself back in. It's already a night and day difference, but I'm kind of in shape for the first time since I blew my hip in 2008.
Man, I'm glad to hear that things are going better because, when you talk about passion, I've done a lot of messages on that as being a pastor, the whole suffering, sure. But, when your heart's in it, I just love that, and I'm excited about the potential of all this stuff that you're talking about. I think it's going to have just a huge impact on people. Let me ask you this. I'm getting down to the end of our time. Just a couple things. What is one thing that someone could do today? Like one simple thing, because people are always looking at, well, I need to just have a total overhaul, or I've got to do this 6,000 things, and then I can start making progress. What is one simple thing that people can start doing right now that would make a significant impact in their life?
Oh, well, I mean, it's. I don't know if I want to give you one, but okay, here you go.
Yeah, give a
Here,
couple if you want. It'd be great.
you could do. You could. Let's just go. We'll kind of build it up. If you really want to change your life for the best, I would do what Stu McGill recommends in the great book, The Gift of Injury. Walk about 10 minutes before every meal. That will completely change everything in your life. It might be the wisest thing you could possibly do. Um, John, that's not fair because there's a lot of things. But, let me just tell you something I've figured out in the last couple of years, okay? Coffee and red wine keep coming up as these kind of miracle drinks, okay? And they keep trying to, cut it, okay. It's got to be something like, okay, it's got to be the antioxidants and the oil that's in coffee. And then they take the antioxidants out and they give it to people. Has no effect. It's got to be the Resveratrol in red wine. Let's take the pill. Doesn't make any difference. Here's why I think coffee and red wine help with longevity and all kinds of things. John, if you're having a bad day, I'll say, let's go out and get a cup of coffee. Last night I had a friend from my home neighborhood, South San Francisco. She showed up here in Utah. And we went out and she came over and we opened up a bottle of red wine, and Tiff and I and Jerry sat and talked for a long time. When you go on this walk before every meal, take along somebody and talk to them, and if you get a chance, take your kid, because we are communal animals and people forget that all the time. So reach out and touch. I guess that could be a TV commercial. There's my advice for you. Before every meal, take a 10-minute walk with somebody different every time, and you'll notice that 10-minute walk often turns into an hour walk. There you go.
Fantastic. Relationships, just such an important thing to our emotional, spiritual, physical health. We have so many people who don't take time to get to know somebody on a different level. I love that, just the act of walking or sharing that time together, how people just naturally open up. It's not forced, when you're on a walk like that. It's just doing life together. I love that. 2 more questions for you. First one is, sure. What's next for Dan John?
Well, I don't know when it's going to air, but I go out to see Mike Boyle this weekend. Professionally, what's next? Well, then of course I got all the summer work in Europe. I just found out a few hours ago that my wife isn't getting transferred, so a lot of the things I've been worried about suddenly went, disappeared. The biggest thing, John, is on July 24th, 2010, I had to retire as a discus thrower because I couldn't walk anymore. And I'm thinking this summer I'm gonna come out of retirement and start throwing again. Started throwing the javelin last year. It's a lot easier on the injuries I've had, and I'm very much looking forward to it. I still dream about the throw, so I still have. I've always joked that the discus is my mistress, and she's a terrible person. She's horrible. She won't let me go. So that would be Dan John University, the discus. Really trying to spend more quality time with a lot of important people, and there you go.
I love that. I'm just so inspired. You talk about most people. You talked about being better after having the hip replacement, and how things are changing. Most people, any kind of replacement is almost like a death sentence to their athleticism. They just say, well, I can't do this because this has happened. And one of the things I love with what you're sharing, I love watching. I get so fired up when I watch people that have lost limbs and they're working out, is that, one of the things I think that you teach through all of your material is there's no excuse not to do something. And that just inspires me so much that, hey, you've done it all, but you still have dreams and goals. And I think that's what people need to hear, that, hey, I'm 63. I've been there. I've done that. I've climbed the mountain, but I got more mountains I'm after. And I love hearing that. That gets me fired up just sitting here.
John, if I listened to every naysayer in my life, since I was young for my class, and I'm Irish, so I didn't hit puberty until I was, 20? I've always been told I was too slow, too small, too this, too that, which is weird because, if you ever take a picture with me, I look like Shrek. I just like the villagers chase me around with pitchforks and torches. But I've just learned to just let that stuff, you got to let that stuff slide off. You've got to constantly, you have to be your own cheerleader when it comes to certain things in life, and one of them is, let me just back off one quick thing real quick. I've gotten away from goal setting almost entirely. John, do we have enough time to talk about this?
We have all the time in the world. You can go wherever you want to go.
So I think two of my theories. One's called shark habits. Mm-hmm. For example, right now I'm wearing a black polo shirt because I always wear black polo shirts because I bought 18 of them in the same size and same brand. And why 18 is that's all they had in North America. And I bought them all in my size. Shark habits is, you'll notice with me, and I'm sure you picked up on this, you emailed me, and I emailed you right back?
Yep, I love that.
Yeah, so that's a shark habit to me. I open an email, I answer the email. I open the letter. If there's a bill, I pay the bill. If there's a bum. And it drives some people crazy. Today I was doing a thing with Pat Flynn, and right in the middle of it, somebody asked something. I said, and right then I stopped, took care of it, sent it in, done. Right there. But the other one is pirate maps. And pirate maps are this idea that you come up with. Pirate map. Go to St. John's Island, find the white coconut tree, take 7 paces to the west, dig down. That's a pirate map. My pirate map is number 1, the sleep ritual the night before. Number 2, I wake up and I'm grateful. Number 3, I do a 1-minute meditation every day. Number 4, 3 days a week, I do Ben Fogel's AB. He's my trainer. I do his workouts 3 days a week, and I do extra stuff here at my gym. Now it's 4 days a week. And then my other one is I eat 8 different vegetables every day. Okay. My thought is this: if I do those 5 things, that's my pirate map. So that when my granddaughter, she's 5, my goal is to dance at her wedding. I feel that if I do that every day, I can make it. So I've gotten away from goal setting. I've really slid to process things. So if you want to be a millionaire, every day, I love the book Automatic Millionaire. Where you get a paycheck, and when you get your paycheck, you've already invested money for your retirement. You've already invested money for an emergency. You know what I'm saying? If you want to be a millionaire, you probably need to do a few things every day. Millionaire is not a lot of money anymore, but there's a few things you should do every day. For example, not get in stupid debt. I don't know. I'm just spitballing with the millionaire idea. But if you focus on the process, the goal will take care of itself. When people ask what it takes to be strong, or why am I so good at pressing? I'm really a good presser. I don't know if you knew that, but I'm really a good presser. And one of the reasons I'm a good presser is that I've been pressing since 1965. And you get pretty good at it after, what's that, almost 50 years now, huh? Yeah. So that's what I focus on. So the shark habits are the things I do for anything that comes across my desk and I can take care of it, I take care of it. That's a shark habit. That's why I have menus and shopping lists and checklists. And then for what's important to me, what I would call my goal, dancing at Josephine's wedding, I pirate map it. I try to do the same thing this year, 366 days. I will get a good night's sleep, start the day with a moment of gratitude, do a 1-minute meditation, eat 8 different vegetables, on the appropriate day's workout. And you add that up, 365 times 10 plus the 2 leap days, that's a lot of vegetables and a lot of good night's sleep, and that'll get you to your goals.
Yeah, it's that whole compounding interest on what you're doing. Yes. I heard you speak on those 2 subjects, on the shark bites and the pirate maps, and I was taking notes like crazy. you were generous enough to email me that lecture.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
there's just so many things that you can take away from that. The John Maxwell quote, one of my favorite quotes he always says is this, is we overestimate the event and we underestimate the process.
Yes, exactly.
And, the process is the goal. You're talking about throwing again and she's my mistress and all these things. We're talking about the process of the love of it's not so much the goal, it's the action. We all have this weird relationship with strength training and just these habits in general. They really do change our lives. I can tell you that just getting into the gym on a regular basis, I try and do something every day, unless, I'm on a plane. Sometimes, we can't because I need it for my own mental health.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I love these shark bite concepts, talking about making sure that your bedroom is dark and black at night, so you're not getting all kinds of little things that people can do, which leads me into my last question. It's kind of a two-parter. It is, how can people get your resources, learn more about you, and then is there anything else that you would like to share? Any more knowledge bombs you want to drop on the listeners today?
Well, I've got two websites. There's one called danjohn.net, and that you can go in there, and if you decide to print everything off, you better have 3 reams of paper. There's literally thousands of pages of material there, and that's all free. Help yourself. I've got a couple of free books in there. I got Coyote Kettlebell Club, From the Ground Up, Contrarian Approach to the Discus, and From Dad to Grad, a free version. And then I have a site. It's now called danjohnuniversity.com. It's got this thing in there called the Workout Generator that I just think is the guy who designed it, Brian. He's inside my brain, man. So be careful when you decide to make a I will be your coach. At least my brain will be coaching you, and it's phenomenal. And then we must have close to 100 essays there, and probably 13, 14 downloadable PDFs that are all really quite big. In fact, a couple of them are. I need to probably go through a few of them and sell the articles. They're really good. I mean, I was looking at one the other day. And it's like, oh, that's pretty good, So yeah, knowledge bombs I could share with you. Well, the biggest thing is I would hope we would talk in a year from now and I would be enthusiastic about something new. The biggest thing I've learned in my career is, and I think Pareto's law, 80-20 rule is true. I keep telling people that 80% of what I've been coaching since 1979, I've never gotten rid of. I was in 1979 when I first coached. 80% of what I did, I still do. And in 10 years, I'll still be doing 80. The problem is a whole bunch of things come in and go out. And that's kind of the fun thing. So, when the kettlebell came in, for example, because, that's kind of we met, it really allowed me to do a few things I hadn't been able to do with the barbell. And when the suspension trainers came in, wow, I thought they were idiotic at first until I did the single arm row. And I was like, oh, that's really good. And so I don't know the hip thrust, the hip thrust we do them with bands. The hip thrust has been, especially as a person of titanium, I got a lot of titanium in me. I just can't believe how wonderful it worked. 10 years from now, I'm looking forward to finding out what I toss out and what's new and shiny and great in 10 years. It's always going to be that way. Ideally, we keep getting a little bit smarter, a little bit better, a little bit cleaner every year.
I love that. You're always growing. And again, I get this is a free commercial for the hip thruster, but yeah. I have the hip thrust bench. We've had it for years. My wife does them every day. I do them almost every day with a band around my knees too. I like to do them banded. Yeah. It has changed my posture, all kinds of stuff. But we would have never talked about training glutes, for me personally, 10 years ago. It was, you do a lot of squats, you do a lot of deadlifts, they'll take care of themselves. That has been a game changer. But what I love is that you're just basically telling us that we should be different. We should continually grow and not stay stagnant, because we're either growing or we're declining, but we're never staying the same. And I think that's the message that I get from you that is so encouraging.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Here's the other thing about, they just did a study about the hip thrust and versus the back squat. And I looked at the very sentence. I said to myself, we continue to be at the lowest end of thinking, which is either or. Mm-hmm. Who in their right mind would just do hip thrusts? Or really, and I have to say this is nice. I mean, I guess you'd be fine. I mean, but why would you just choose one? Mm-hmm. And so if I was going to leave one great bit of advice is, folks, try not to keep looking at everything as binary, on, off, either or, and really throw your arms around both and, which is a much higher level of thinking, especially in theology, than some of the nonsense you usually hear. Okay? So, folks, it's okay to do a whole bunch of like you train with me, you'll be doing Olympic lifts, kettlebells, power lifts, bodybuilding, mobility work, sprinting, carrying, throwing. There's no either or here.
Amazing. And that's what people need to hear today. I mean, that's the thing. Do it all. I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, I want to thank you for investing in all of our listeners today. We want to thank Dan Jon for graciously taking the time to be our guest today. I want to thank our sponsors, ZionMissionaryChurch.net, NeuroPowerSource.com, our podcast producer, Drew Kiespert, our film director, Jolyn Thomas. Be sure to rate us and subscribe to the Pressing Limits podcast and look for more ways to watch and listen. And you can check out Pressing the Limits podcast website. Again, thanks, Dan. What an amazing time.
Let's do it again.